Tonight, imagine yourself standing at the edge of the ancient world. The air is warm, dry, and faintly perfumed with incense drifting in from somewhere unseen. Dust settles slowly after each footstep, hanging in the light like smoke. In the distance, stone meets stone as a massive gate begins to open, its weight announced by a deep, grinding echo that carries across the valley. You are approaching Jerusalem at the height of its power. The city doesn't shout its importance. It doesn't need to. It glows quietly in the fading light, confident and unhurried. Torches flicker along the walls, reflecting off polished stone and metal. The rhythm of life inside feels steady, practiced, like a system that knows exactly what it is doing. This is the Kingdom of Solomon. Before we go any further, take a moment to settle in. Let your breathing slow. Let the outside world recede. These stories weren't meant to be rushed. They unfold the way the ancient world itself did, patiently, deliberately. Now picture the streets beneath your feet. They're worn smooth by centuries of movement. Merchants pass by speaking languages you don't recognize. Camels shift under heavy loads. Wooden wheels creak as caravans arrive from distant lands, Africa, Arabia, the far edges of Asia, carrying goods that only the wealthiest societies on earth could afford. Gold appears everywhere, not locked away, not hidden. So common, in fact, that silver has lost much of its meaning. Here, silver is ordinary. That may sound impossible, but in Solomon's world, it's simply the result of scale. Solomon did not become wealthy the way history usually imagines kings becoming wealthy. He didn't conquer endlessly. He didn't expand his borders through constant war. He inherited something far more valuable: stability. His father, King David, had already done the brutal work of unification. The wars had been fought, the borders secured, the threats pushed outward. When Solomon took the throne, the land was quiet. Peace in the ancient world was rare. And peace creates space, space to think, space to plan, space to build something lasting. Solomon understood this instinctively. While other rulers looked outward, scanning the horizon for enemies, Solomon looked inward, at systems, at alliances, at leverage. His kingdom sat at a crossroads few could ignore. To the south lay Africa, rich in gold and rare materials. To the east, Arabian trade routes carrying spices, incense, and precious metals. To the north, Phoenician ports opening into the Mediterranean and beyond. Trade passed through Solomon's land whether he welcomed it or not. So he chose to shape it. But control doesn't always look like force. Often it looks like reputation. Early in his reign, Solomon made a choice that would define everything that followed. When offered wealth, power, or long life, he asked for something quieter. Wisdom, not wisdom as poetry or philosophy, but judgment. The ability to decide well, to listen carefully, to recognize patterns before they fully emerged. And whether you see that moment as history, tradition, or legend, what followed is difficult to argue with. Solomon became known, not loudly, not through intimidation, but steadily. Merchants began to prefer his territory, diplomats sought his counsel, rulers spoke his name with a kind of cautious respect. His reputation traveled farther than armies ever could. In the ancient world, trust was currency, and Solomon accumulated it. With trust came opportunity. With opportunity came partnerships, and with partnerships came scale. One of the most important alliances Solomon formed was with the Phoenicians, master sailors whose ships reached ports others could only imagine. Solomon didn't compete with them, he collaborated. They brought ships, navigation, and access to distant markets. Solomon provided land access, resources, political stability, and safe passage. Together, they built something new, a trade network that functioned across borders, cultures, and seas. Gold arrived from distant regions, spices filled storehouses. Exotic goods moved through Jerusalem like blood through an artery. Solomon didn't need to invent wealth, he became the place wealth passed through. And when you control the flow, you control the outcome. As the years passed, the scale became difficult to ignore. Historical accounts describe staggering amounts of gold entering the kingdom year after year. His throne was crafted from ivory and overlaid with gold. His ceremonial shields were gold. Even his drinking vessels were gold. Silver, once precious, was treated like stone. This wasn't excess for its own sake, it was messaging. In a world without financial statements, wealth had to be visible, stability had to be undeniable. Solomon understood that perception was part of power. Eventually, word traveled even farther. A queen from a distant land, Sheba, heard the stories and came to see for herself. She arrived with a caravan heavy with gold, spices, and rare goods. Not to submit, not to flatter, but to test. She questioned Solomon, observed his court, studied the rhythm of his kingdom. And what impressed her most wasn't just his wisdom, it was how effortlessly everything functioned. This was not chaos disguised as wealth. This was order. Solomon had made power look calm, but systems of this size demand structure, and structure demands sacrifice. Solomon built relentlessly, cities, storehouses, fortifications, and the great temple itself. Labor was required, taxes increased, the burden on the population grew heavier with time. The system worked, but pressure quietly accumulated beneath the surface. When Solomon died, the system remained, but the balance did not. The people asked for relief, they received more weight instead. And the kingdom fractured. Trade weakened, influence faded. The machine Solomon built could not operate without the one who designed it. And that is the quiet lesson of his story. Solomon understood wealth more deeply than almost anyone of his time. He built systems instead of chasing treasure. He controlled gateways instead of territory. He ruled through reputation rather than fear. But even the greatest systems require care, succession, balance. Without them, they collapse. As the image of Solomon's Jerusalem fades, consider how familiar this story feels. We still admire wealth, still chase influence, still build systems that outgrow the people meant to sustain them. History remembers kings and conquerors, but behind them were strategies, structures, and fortunes that shaped the world. This is where those stories live.